Hello everyone, this is Baldo Spirito, and this is a quick guide, quick template guide for single player, where I won't go into too much explanation and mathematical analysis. Instead, I'm just gonna show you the best templates so that you can immediately use them if you're like more of a casual player. In single player, I think you essentially need like only three types of templates. One is you need an infantry, you need a garrison division, and you need a tank division. And I'm gonna start with the infantry division. This is basically what you want for an infantry. You use 14 infantry and 4 artillery with a support artillery, a engineer, a cavalry recon, a support anti-air, and logistics. Now logistics you could remove if you don't have supply problems, like if you are fighting in a region like that is high infrastructure, or like if you're just like defending against naval invasions in France and you don't like have a lot of troops on the front, etc. You could remove the logistics or potentially replace it with like support artillery for support rocket artillery for more soft attack, or support anti-tank if you wanna, like if you have piercing problems or that sort of thing. Now usually in single player I don't think you need an anti-tank, because the AI just doesn't know how to build tanks or how to use them properly. So you usually want to build anti-infantry divisions when you are playing single player, which is the reason I recommend this 14-4 template. This is a bad template against tanks, so I don't recommend this in multiplayer, but in single player I think it works quite fine. And this is essentially, I would say, the only infantry template you ever need. But I did add this because the thing is, you may not have enough army XP in the early game to actually build this. So like in the early game when you don't have army experience, you can use this as a temporary template, a 7-2. And in smaller divisions, like this is a 20-bit division, I do not recommend using a lot of support because it's just not cost efficient. Basically, like the support companies that do not deal like soft attack or hard attack damage, like the support artillery. So when I'm talking about stuff like engineer, cavalry recon, anti-air, and logistics, these are much more efficient to use on higher width templates, because they essentially provide the same benefit as they would provide to this division, but they are providing it to like more battalions, so they are much more cost efficient in higher width divisions. This is why I would just use this as a temporary measure until you have enough army XP to build this division. Now, the second type of division you need is garrisons, and by that I mean automatic garrisons for these occupied territories. Now, technically, this is the most efficient division, both in terms of equipment and manpower. You just fill the entire template with cavalry and add a military police support. But of course, this is very heavy on army XP, so you may want to use something like a 2-with cavalry. You just add 1 cav. You can use this as a garrison until you have essentially infinite army XP. Like if you have more army XP than you can use, only then I would switch to this one, because there isn't a huge difference between these two templates. Like we could actually do like a quick test here. Like for example, if you use, like if you don't know the garrison stuff and use like your infantry, for example, let's see how much manpower that's gonna use for garrison. Now you see the infantry template is using 63k manpower for the garrisons. Now if you, and also of course it's using I mean, you can also look at here, but I also will show you the actual we are using. Basically, the 14.4 as manpower per suppression is 850, and the production cost is 87. Now the cav is the pure cav is much better, much lower production cost per suppression and much lower manpower. So let's switch to that, and you'll see that the garrison we use has significantly decreased as in here as well. And finally, the 50 with cav with the military police support is the most efficient, both in terms of suppression, production cost per suppression and manpower per suppression. But like I said, this requires a lot of army XP, and I think the difference between these two is not is not worth the army XP you're gonna spend on it, unless you like there is literally nothing else you can spend the army XP on. Okay, so that covers the basic templates, and you could actually win a game just using these. But if you're playing a major like Germany or like Soviet or maybe USA, you probably want tanks to attack. Like, tanks are much more efficient for attacking compared to infantry. So if you're playing a major and can afford to build tanks, you should definitely build tanks and attack with tanks. And since the AI, like I said, doesn't know how to build tanks, you want to build anti-infantry tanks. And this is like the best tank template in my opinion. You put 7 motorized, 5 normal tanks, and 5 self-propelled artillery and 1 self-propelled anti-air. Now you can drop the anti-air and, for example, maybe switch to something like this. But I would only do this if you have green air everywhere, which is like a more advanced topic. So I will use this one, which is safer. I mean, this is gonna work even if you don't have green air everywhere. So like if you don't know how to maintain green air, like in all the zones your tanks are fighting in, you can just build this division and be okay. And since we are trying to maximize soft attack here, we are using support rocket artillery and support artillery. Now you almost always want logistics in tanks, because since you are attacking with tanks, you will usually be in like low supply regions, and tanks use a lot of supply. So you almost always want the logistics. Now I prefer light armored recon compared to cavalry recon on tanks, because this gives 1 more reconnaissance compared to cavalry recon, and reconnaissance is important for picking good tactics in combat. And in addition, this gives higher speed in plains and desert, which is the best terrain for tanks. So you want to be using your tanks in plains and desert, and this gives you the best speed in there. So light armored recon is, I think, better on tanks. And engineer is of course like a really good, I mean, engineer is probably like the best company for high width divisions, because it's like it gives you better terrain bonuses and it's super efficient for high combat width. And the heavy tank version is essentially the same as the medium tank version. You just replace the medium tanks with heavy tanks. Which one, like when you are choosing between medium tank and heavy tank, I would recommend the heavy tank usually. But if you do not have access to chromium but you have access to tungsten, then medium tank is probably better. And another consideration is like what kind of terrain are you going to be fighting in. Like if you are fighting in France where it is mostly plains, heavy tank is probably significantly better. But like in Soviet North, especially where it is mostly forests, medium tank might be better, because like medium tank has less terrain penalties compared to heavy tanks. So medium tank is slightly better than heavy tanks in terrain like forest, marshes, hills, mountains, etc. I mean, even medium tanks are really bad for attacking mountains and stuff, but you know, for less heavy terrain like forest, and also for river crossings as well, medium tanks are generally better. There are ways to make use of heavy tanks in hard terrain as well, but I mean that's more of an advanced topic. So like if you're a casual player and you want to attack the Soviets, I would just recommend building medium tanks as long as you have access to tungsten. Now, one other thing you can do, especially with heavy tanks, is you could replace the motorized with cavalry if you have a fuel problem. Like cavalry doesn't use fuel, so you could do this, and this is especially good for heavy tanks because the heavy tanks are slow anyway, so you don't really lose any speed by switching your motorized to cavalry for the heavy template. And like especially when you are playing Axis, I think this is actually a pretty good template because it preserves some fuel, like it uses less fuel, and you usually have fuel problems with Axis. Now it is less good for the medium tank because you're gonna lose on your speed, but it can still be used. I mean, of course, if you don't have fuel, you're not gonna have any speed anyway, so you might, if you run out of fuel, you could also do it in the medium template. Okay, I think this is it for the templates, but for the sake of completeness, I should also talk about like which land doctrine to use and how to use your army XP on tank variants. Now, land doctrine is actually pretty easy, especially for a casual player. I think there is only one thing you need to know, and that is always take superior firepower. And always go integrated support. Now here, if you are building tanks, go left, and if you are not building tanks, go right. The right side is better for infantry and the left side is better for tanks. So and that's it. Very simple. Always go superior firepower and integrated support. If you're gonna build tanks, go air land battle. If you're not gonna build tanks, go shock and awe, and that's all you need to know as a casual player. Okay, in terms of variants, now this is slightly more complicated, but I will again try to keep it simple. Now, whether you're talking about AA, artillery or tank destroyer, or like the normal tank, you always want to maximize the gun first. Okay, but the question, like the complicated part, is reliability. Like on certain types of equipment, reliability is more important. For self-propelled AA, you can just max the anti-air armament and leave the reliability at 60. And the reason is, like, when you are talking about reliability, you want to look at two things. One, how cheap, how expensive is the battalion. Now, if you look at the production cost of the battalion here, it is 216. Compare that to the production cost of the self-propelled artillery battalion, which is 648, and the normal tank is 1080. And the more expensive a single battalion is, the more reliability you want. And another thing, the more equipment you need per battalion. Here the battalion requires 40 heavy tanks, as you see, like right below the manpower requirement, you see plus 40 heavy tank. That means this battalion requires 40 pieces of heavy tank equipment. And here the self-propelled artillery requires 24, and the SPA requires 8. So the less equipment you need per battalion, the less important reliability is. So both in terms of production cost and in terms of equipment pieces per battalion, this tells you that the SPA doesn't need a lot of reliability. The self-propelled artillery needs more reliability compared to SPA, and the normal tank needs the most amount of reliability. So what we are going to do is put 5 on the you just put 5 on AA guns, and you can leave it at that. On SPA, on SP self-propelled artillery, I would go 5-3. I think 84% reliability is enough for this one. And on the actual heavy tank, I would go 5-5. And this is pretty much I mean, this is enough for most players, but like if you are considering if you have more army XP, you could also consider adding engine. I think after, like if you have a ton of army XP after you already done the upgrades. But the thing with engine is you usually do not have enough army XP for it, because especially when you are using a template like this with 3 different pieces of equipment, you're gonna need to up the engine on all of them to get the speed bonus, because basically the speed of the division is the speed of the slowest division, the slowest battalion in the division. So if you want to make use of the engine, you're gonna have to upgrade the engine on all 3 types of the tank equipment. So usually you don't have enough army XP for that, which is why it's not really that important to talk about. But yeah, if you have tons of army XP, you could like add like 2 to all of the 3, and then just progressively upgrade it or something. But to be honest, in single player, speed isn't even really that important. And armor is basically, I think you usually don't upgrade armor unless upgrading the armor will allow you to not get pierced. Like if you are getting pierced by a really small margin, like maybe the enemy has 5 more piercing than the armor of your division, then you could consider upgrading armor. But I would only upgrade it after I upgrade the gun first in most cases. Also note that upgrading the armor also lowers reliability. So even if you have like a 5-5 here, once you start upgrading armor, your reliability is gonna start getting lower, and so that's the problem. So usually I would not upgrade armor. Like 5 armor, especially because of the reliability difference, it's not really worth it. So, but like if there is a really small difference between the enemy piercing and your armor, and like if you can add 1 armor and that's gonna allow you to not get pierced, then it might be worth it to add like 1 armor. You could even do like you could even reduce the gun potentially if that is the case. Like you could go like 4-5-1 if the additional armor is gonna be the difference between getting pierced and not getting pierced. But yeah, that's about it. And usually you don't have to worry about armor as a casual player. Just you can max the gun and win the game easily. Okay, anyway, this is it for this video. Now I did not cover special forces because they have more niche uses. I mean, these you pretty much always use. Like tanks you don't always use, but if you are a major you pretty much always use tanks. And special forces you usually use in special cases. I mean, like the name implies, like if you want a paradrop or if you want a naval invade, Sometimes you can use them for like crossing large rivers. So I'm gonna leave them for a different video, which I will post soon. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.